Welcome to an edition of our Top 20 Video Game Music Show. This week, we're going to celebrate the top composers on the show. We did a vote on our Discord. Everybody submitted their top 5, ranked 1 through 5, and we gave points based on that. 5 points for first place, 4 points for second place, and so on. And I know Giant Bomb does that, but back a couple years ago when Giant Bomb wasn't doing that for their Game of the Year list, that's how I did my Game of the Year list, and that's how we've done several of our shows on here where we rank the best Final Fantasy games, we rank our favorite Metal Gear Solid, Legend of Zelda, and we have videos for those. They're really fun. So I was doing it before Giant Bomb did that because I didn't want to copy the way they did it because their Game of the Year stuff was great. That's a side note. Back to what we're talking about. We're here to celebrate the top 7. It was supposed to be top 5, but there was a 3-way tie. So, first off, let's go with the honorable mentions. Ian Livingstone of Battlefield 1942, Forza Horizons 5, The Quarry. David Burgode from Ratchet & Clank, Resistance. I guess he's an Insomniac guy. Scott Lloyd Shelley of Terraria and Legacy of Kain. James Roach. These are the ones that did not make the list. But we are off to... Oh, also Darren Korb and Toby Fox were ones that got... Those two got significantly more votes than the ones I said. I just unfortunately put them in also. But let's get to the ones that made our top 7. So, tied for 6th place. We've got, yes, last but not least would have been a much smarter way to put that. All right, so I'm going to say 7th place because they had 2 third place votes and the others had a mixture of a second place vote and a first place vote. With 2 third place votes, we have the great Masashi Hamauzu. Now, Masashi Hamauzu came onto the scene, into the Final Fantasy scene in Final Fantasy X, whereas after the first 9 Final Fantasies had been composed 100% by Nobuo Uematsu, they wanted to bring in a couple different flavors for 10 to, I guess, provide the sound of a different world. Tidus travels through different worlds. There's different cultures in the game. And Hamauzu brought in his style of incredible atmosphere. His stuff just sounds like it's kind of swirling around. There's always a beautiful violin. It's atmospheric, it's ambient, but it's exciting and it has a purpose. It's not just sitting there being ambient. So the first track we're going to play to celebrate him, by the way, we're going to do 2 tracks for the first 1, 2, 3, 4 people here. And then once we get up to 3rd place, we're going to play 3 of those. Second place is going to have 4 tracks, and first place is going to have 5 tracks. All right, this is Besaid Island from Final Fantasy X. I'd say actually out of a lot of the Masashi Uematsu stuff I've heard, and that is in 10 and that is in Final Fantasy 13, this is one of his ones that has kind of like a very steady percussive element to it, which a lot of his stuff doesn't. Or it has percussion, but like, in like odd time signatures, and it has more of like a swirling push and pull. This one's got boom, 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 boom. Like pretty straight ahead. But it has that beautiful, like Chris is saying with the arpeggio, really gives it that bright and a little innocent outlook on the future, like a kid with the world before them, reflects Titus's, alright, I'll say Titus, positive attitude to life. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. This plays when you've washed ashore in a brand new place that's bright, it's happy, but it's different. And I think that, you know what I like? I like that little kind of, it's bassy, but there's a bit of like edge to it, almost like it's distorting the speaker a bit, or that it's being played with maybe a handmade instrument that is really exotic to your ear. And that arpeggio is just a constant that it has like a real kind of magical feel to it, but sort of playful in a way. And I would say that the song also contrasts sort of the happiness and the brightness of, say, the arpeggios. But there's this kind of like dissonant thing in the piano, not here but before, when it's like bonk, 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 that gives it that feeling of you're in a different place now. This is way different. Although what's interesting about Final Fantasy X is that the first kind of themes you're hearing when you're in Titus's world to begin with, which you think is the place you're starting in and is your home base, I'd say the music there sounds really strange too, which is interesting, It's sort of like foreshadowing that you're going to go somewhere else that's going to become your new home, right? First time in the game, you're really allowed to relax and soak it in. Absolutely, yeah. It does have a melancholy feel to the piano. It's like almost like a nostalgic feel to it. All right, let's move on to the next Hamazu track. Oh, and let's also verify if it was the remaster to the original. So I think we were listening to the original before, because the remaster starts with actual piano. Slower too. And I think Hamazu was the one who rearranged it too, because he rearranged the Final Fantasy VII remake music too, right? So it's interesting, like this becomes more like a Hamazu track, more open, slower, more that like breathy effect to it, whereas the original is more like he doesn't want to go too crazy, Still pretty straight ahead. And like you said, it's an introduction to this world. Interesting. All right, let's move on to the next. All right, our second track for Hamazu is from The Legend of Legacy. This track is Double Dimension Battle. interesting. There is just a little bit of Zelda in there. Almost like the Lost Woods, I think, in Ocarina of Time. I love the way he just always has that violin, like, just able to swirl in and just kind of attack and move out. Whenever I think of his tracks, this one actually has like a bit of funk guitar, like you were saying, and some funk bass, and like some pushes ahead. But you know, the way he just stops the beat here, no kick drum. This stuff to me just sounds like it's constantly kind of going up and down, as opposed to, you know, from left to right. It's like watching a towering cyclone, a vortex. He's great with those horns too. When I hear those horns, it really reminds me of the Bartandalus fight in Final Fantasy XIII. Swirling violins, very airy, yes. He's a bit like, I'd put him in the similar vein as David Wise. And then the sort of like futuristic funk. He's amazing. I'm really glad he's in our list. Tied for 5th, technically in 7th place, Masashi Uematsu. All right, technically at number 6, but tied in a 3-way tie for 5th, we have a great composer who I just made a comparison to Uematsu, North American fellow. This is David Wise. Now, for a lot of the composers, I tried to choose different songs that you guys had put in from different games, like split it up. But it was really hard not to pick 2 tracks from Donkey Kong Country 2. The first one is going to be Forced Interlude, and the next one will be Sticker Bush Symphony. I don't think anybody writes like David Wise. And I don't think anybody really took advantage of what the Super Nintendo could do better than him. It doesn't... This is a restored version that I think Chris had found for us. So this person says, Forest theme from Donkey Kong Country 2 in pristine studio quality, made possible by locating the sounds from workstation keyboards and drum machines, such as the Korg Wave Station Roland S770 and the Roland R8, plugging them into the music instruction data ripped from the game, plus a little mixing magic to create what it might have sounded without the 16-bit compression. So now I have to hear the original. Forest Interlude, Donkey Kong Country 2, original. No, you just hit restore it again, you fool. You know, that's what I love about this restored version, is that it's the same, just fuller. Jesus. That, you know, it also has like a really modern feel to it, eh? At least in the rhythm. The music that takes your hand and comforts you by saying the world is wonderful and everything will be alright. And then this part happens, and it's like, I know what you mean by the comfort, because this part really should be weird and strange, but it's a nice weird and strange. It's like somebody just put a finger up your butt and you're like, oh, I didn't know. The sounds could be cheesy and corny in the hands of someone else. Yeah, it does make it transcendent. It's the chords and the harmonies for sure. It's a lot of like slash chords, and where you have a different bass note underneath the chord that you're expecting, and just letting, there's always something that is constantly playing, like it's a pad in the background of just, wow. There's no attack to it, there's no end to it, it's just almost like you're swimming around. I do like the Super Guitar Brothers. All right, let's get on to the next one. From also Donkey Kong Country 2, this is Sticker Bush Symphony. Restored. I'd say that sounds video gamey and cheesy, but still works. I love that, more of that like constant padding chords in the background. Even the bass is done in a padding way. But the melody has quite a lot of attack and quite a lot of delay, so that's providing a lot of percussion, but it's this percussion of it's just, there's so much delay with all these things bouncing off each other, so many layers. Just gives it this amazing feeling. Like, it really could be such a great underwater level. It sounds like little bubbles are kind of going up. Especially the way they put that like filter on them. Incredible. There's nobody like David Wise. One of the greatest of all time. I'm glad he's on our list. All right, next up, to finish off our three-way tie for 6th place, technically in 5th because they had a 1st place vote and a 5th place vote. This is the great artist, maybe not person, Jeremy Soule. We're going to start off with a track from Skyrim. This is Far Horizons. Wow. Incredible. I mean, Jeremy Soule, like David Wise and Hamazu, a master of ambiance and making things huge and having, you know, a breath in them and sort of a windiness. And his Jeremy Soule stuff just sounds so revelatory. Like you are, I mean, could anyone else capture the magnificence of what makes an Elder Scrolls game great? Where, yeah, they're clunky, but it's a giant world that you're in awe of, and walking through it is meditative and calming, and you never know what's around the corner, and discovering it always feels like something really special. even when you're doing on paper, which seems kind of mundane things, but I love that. I'm going to guess it's a French horn he's using at the beginning because it's quite soft compared to, say, a trumpet, or it's not a trombone because it doesn't slide. And then to have the choir come in there and repeat it, it's almost like the horn is the first glimpse of it as you're walking and sing it over the horizon. And then once you get closer, you realize maybe it's a temple that has a choir. Beautiful. Then the key change. Oh, that note there really sounds like you've discovered something great. You know, we talked about this before, but so much of the experience of playing Elder Scrolls is the music. It's a lot like Star Wars, where it's at least 50% of the experience. Okay, does his stuff sound the same? Let's try it out. This is from a totally different franchise, Guild Wars 2. The track is Fear Not This Night, featuring Asya Kadritsk. I don't know. ASJA, last name KADRIC with an over the C. Interesting. Yeah, when I would hear this, I would not think it's from Elder Scrolls at all. It's, it has, well, it's a little more human sounding in a way. A bit more relatable, but also sort of like high fantasy, but not the Morrowind kind of fantasy. Or Elder Scrolls doesn't have that kind of like heaviness. Elder Scrolls is very slow and heavy. This one's a bit quicker, a little more magical. And then I'd say maybe about 30-45 seconds ago, it almost sounds like more like a modern sort of Disney Pixar type. Like it sounds like it could be in Frozen 3. The Elf Man Cometh. With his Elder Scrolls movie, this music, there's almost like it's a bit more grounded in a way. It still has that revelation, but it's not so soaring and majestic. All right, next up, we are out of our three-way tie. We're on to the official fourth place with a first place vote and a fourth place vote, giving them 7 points. Just ahead of Jeremy Soule and the rest. This is Yasunori Mitsuda of Chrono Trigger fame, Xenoblade Chronicles, Chrono Cross. We're going to play from Chrono Trigger, Secret of the Forest. The that fretless bass sound he tends to always have, but you hear like that this opening riff here. God, it just sounds so magical, and it's like he's playing it on some kind of a glockenspiel or something, which to me sounds like the intricate workings of a timepiece, like a magical timepiece. And the way that he I like the rhythms that he does in the bass. Just really lets everything kind of float and kind of push and skip off. Chris is saying, works well for an enchanted forest, or maybe a marshland even, the sluggish bass being the boggy ground. Yeah, it does have like a kind of a muddy tone to that bass. Because it's fretless, but it's really low. The lighter notes representing a damp mist. Yeah, those notes do just hang there, don't they? Feeling a little lost, but on the path. Yeah, there's so much bass, and you just really notice it because you really don't hear a lot of fretless bass in a lot of Super Nintendo tracks. A lot of the JRPGs, though, I wonder if I feel like he was influential for that. It just gives it a really kind of like classiness and adds a lot of character and gives a certain feel, which is, when you're using limited hardware, which felt very expensive compared to the NES and the Genesis at the time. It's just a whole other characteristic you're adding. All right, on our second and final Yasunori Mitsuda track, this is City/Day, not slash, in brackets, day. I know the difference. The brackets are the round ones. From Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I love a good City Day theme. Holy shit, I wasn't expecting that. When I see RPG, a JRPG, city theme or a day theme, I guess I was thinking town theme. You know, something nice and plucky and peasant-like and honest and humble. This was like you're entering the Valley of the Gods above the skies with a, you know, like in the middle of some magical ceremony. It does have a tired feel, doesn't it? It's interesting, you know, a lot of people use the waltz time of 3/4 to create a floaty feel. This one uses a 6/8. 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of a floating, it's 1, 2, 2, ba. But what they do is they put the snare right on the 6 each time, which gives it this. It's like you're going out. It's like 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like a yo-yo in low gravity slow motion. Yeah, it's like you're on the space shuttle, chucking the yo-yo around. We are down to our top 3. In third place, with a second place vote and 2 fourth place votes, putting them 1 point ahead of Yasunori Mitsuda, we have the granddaddy of video game music, getting a start on the NES. Not only programming the music for most of the early NES titles, the Nintendo ones, but programming sound effects. A true master of the NES hardware, right up there with Tim Follin. This is Koji Kondo. So we're going to start off with a track from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. This is Gerudo Valley, which I wouldn't say is one of his most important pieces, but it's fun. Koji Kondo is a true master of melody and hardware, and getting to the point where his stuff, there's hardly anything extra thrown onto it. And that probably comes from the fact that he started with the NES, where you had three, because you usually had the fourth channel would be for sounds or percussion. So you had 3 voices you could use, usually a bass and then 2 highs. And I think that he had to express so much with just those 3 all the time. Which, you think of like the basics of like a string quartet. He doesn't even have that 4th for the quartet. Anyway, this one is just so fun. I think that this one shows off that he made a masterful melody, like Claudia was saying. But first off, the drums, or the castanets, they sound really good. They have like a little bit of delay to them, maybe like a little bit of just distortion or something. But the way he's mixed them in They sound pretty realistic to me. That trumpet should sound like shit. It should sound so farty. But the way he layers that maybe adds a bit of delay. Just makes it sound really great. And then choosing to go with this kind of classical guitar where the N64 is never going to have a great acoustic guitar sound, but it can kind of pull off the classical. And his melody is just unbelievable that it works no matter how primitive the sound is. Now, I believe that this next track was composed quite at the last minute. I think that they said, oh yeah, we need an overworld theme. Can you make one? And he did. So now while his Mario tracks are known for being like super punchy, short loops, especially his work on the NES Mario and Super Nintendo Mario, Zelda was where Kondo was able to branch out, make things maybe a little bit longer, a little more challenging, a little more emotional, a little more cinematic. And this is from Zelda. This is from the very first Zelda. This is the Overworld theme. Instant classic that has carried on an influence since the 80s, 90s, O's, teens, now. 4 decades now. Let's listen. Melody just, it goes on such an incredible journey. It's it just sounds so heroic. It sounds so epic. It sounds so triumphant. And I love just the way it feels like it goes up and it goes down, goes up and it's down. I like the way that there's that call and response where sometimes it'll go doo-doo-doo-doo, and the way the bass sometimes does the call and response. I love the way that he uses that sound channel with really just this kind of which to me sounds like a really compressed snare drum. You know, and he doesn't overdo it with that sound channel or try to imitate something else or try to sample. Although Zelda did have early samples of like voices and stuff, which is just so compressed. It really had this like alien sound to it. But yeah, he just has those two melody lines, those two melody notes playing together. And it kind of has this like wow, bit of like vibrato on the note, and the way he can stick those slides, and he was just such a master of what the NES hardware could do. There's so much terrible NES music that I listen back to now, and even if it was really, well composed, it could be really irritating. But it was the way that he combined those two voices all the time, the way that they follow each other, that like singing harmony. It's like listening to Lennon and McCartney. And the way he added those just the variations to kind of soften everything up that really should sound very harsh. Our third track from Koji Kondo, I think we had to throw this in because this is where it all began. You know, it's amazing sometimes when people in history just end up in the right place at the right time. You know, all the Beatles lived in Liverpool and played in the same scene, which could make some people say, well, are they really that good, or were they just the first to do it? No, they were really that good, but there is something divine about it. And when Koji Kondo wants a job and he sees that Nintendo is hiring, and he just applies to be Nintendo's music guy. And not only their music guy, but their sound guy. And he has to learn the programming, as Nintendo is just on this journey of them both revolutionizing everything people know about video games, where the video game industry had its big boom in the arcades. You know, you had your Pong and that kind of stuff, and you had your like Space Invaders and some home systems that could play those games. And then it just got so oversaturated that it was going to die. It was going to crash. And Nintendo brought it back with Super Mario Brothers and this theme song. And this theme song really just laid the way of like what you could do with these beeps and boops. So let's listen to the one that started it all, in a way. It's interesting. Growing up, I never realized, because I probably didn't know anything about hip hop, but I didn't. I never realized how like hip hop that groove was, especially with the way that sound channel does the snare drum, and even the kick drum makes it sound like somebody beatboxing. It's got that kind of like dirty, compressed overdriven. Yeah, and then the Mario rap came out. But so you have, what Koji Kondo would do is he would combine things in crazy ways. And I heard this explained in the Super Mario Brothers. One of them had said, the thing with the NES sounding, there were only so many sounds you could get out of it. So that meant that you could have something that sounded Latin, and you could have something that sounded classical and rock, and you could just put them all together because the NES hardware, the sound hardware, would homogenize it in a way, make it sound like, okay, that stuff's all crazy different, but it all is coming from the same voice. The Latin has got this bass, the bass has a Latin feel. Triplet, 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 triplet. And then his two voices. It kind of reminds me, like the two melody voices. I really hate that loop. It's like the song loops perfectly, and they added two loops at the end. It's horrible. It's almost like ABBA, where they almost always have the two girls singing, and their voices work so well together that they just end up sounding like this one more interesting voice. And the way that he would use his sound effects and have them in the same key, but maybe have them in a key that worked with the music but didn't sound out of place, and the way that it was all sort of rhythmic too. The sound he made for the jumping, whap, whap, that would just slide up. It was a different pitch depending on whether you're Little Mario or Big Mario. Koji Kondo, definitely the most influential. I battled with him on my list, ranking him with another one, and in the end I put him one notch below somebody else on my list, just because although I love Kondo's music and it fits the games that he does so perfectly, and it's instantly fun and catchy and simple because it needed to be, and then became more dramatic. I don't go back to listen to his stuff as much as I do someone else on my list. But still, obviously, in terms of influence and impact, those are the same. In a way, he's number one. So, but on this list, he's number 3. Next up, number 2 on our list. Yoko Shimomura. Look, she thinks she's number 1. Sorry, Yoko. You're number 2 today. She had a 2nd place vote, a 3rd place vote, and a 4th place vote for a total of 9 points. Yoko Shimomura's career has spanned an insane amount of work, influential work. I mean, if you just thought of her as the person who did Kingdom Hearts, you'd be pretty impressed. It's a lot of games and a lot of great music. And for me to really praise that music is something, because I hate everything Kingdom Hearts stands for in terms of its storytelling, the way I don't even want to talk about it. And every time I see, when we have one of these shows, Kingdom Hearts title come up, my brain instantly goes, oh fuck. And then I remember, oh, it's Yoko Shimomura. And it's so good that it just lights me up and fills me up. But not only did she do that, Final Fantasy 15, a lot of the Mario RPG games, she did Street Fighter 2. Just something that at the time was so new. It was like, well, how do you properly score a fighting video game? And she did it like this. We're going to listen to Ken's theme from Street Fighter 2, composed by Yoko Shimomura. Actually, you know what? We're going to listen to a slightly better version. There's one that speaking of the Super Marcato Brothers, they made an album that combined the best elements of the arcade, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis sound pieces, remixed them all together, took the drums from some, took the melodies from another, and they made the Street Fighter 2 Ultimate Edition. So we're going to listen to that version of Ken's theme. All right. So, Ken's theme. You know, I love the way that snare sounds like a martial arts punch. I like the way the chords kind of come in and go like ba-da, ba-da. Because when you think about, you know, the way that these, you know, the fighting game is going, it's like a lot of kind of push, pull. You know, you're doing an attack, you're coming back. You know, it's the push and the pull. It's controlling the zone the way a good Ryu and Ken player should do. And the way she just says it's like really soaring melody. And I would assume this is going to be like a great example of the Dorian mode of taking that, what should be a minor fourth or minor third, and just raising it up, making it sound really heroic. Yeah, it just sounds like you're taking huge hits, taking big swings. I mean, I think we should listen to a few of the other Street Fighter tracks we did. Of course, Guile theme. So good. How about Ryu's? Oh man, you can just like the way that bass goes, you can feel. How about this? Man, the changing rhythms there. Everything kind of calling and responding to each other. But really just like the energy and the drama that's created. And that whistle works so well in the background. The whistle shouldn't work. So from Street Fighter, we're going to jump into something completely different. From the PlayStation 1, this is Parasite Eve and Primalize. I love that PlayStation piano. And there is such a different sound in this from what you would hear at the time. I think this sounds like it could have been in, at the time, like a great thriller movie. I was going to say TV show, but TV shows in the 90s just didn't approach this kind of, this intensity. There's usually like a bit of a cheesiness to TV shows in the 90s that would be about a woman cop with some magic involved. But yeah, I love the energy of those drums. It sounds like great trailer music or battle music. Well, it sounds like bullet shooting, like just running for your life, or you're chasing some perp. Just like all these swirling piano notes, it's so chaotic, and like perfect use of guitar there. I would assume this has got to be from like the intro movie. It's incredible, or maybe some street fighting music. Oh, maybe she's not that eclectic after all. All right, we're going to take some Yoko Shimomura almost all the way up to the modern times. I think this came out in 2015. It's just from Final Fantasy 15. No, it must have been like 2017 then. Or 2018. Anyways, or 2016. This is Up for the Challenge. Yeah, her modern stuff is a lot more full. This one's, to me, this sounds like a real kind of Las Vegas-y track, real kind of slick production where it's when you have the orchestra, but it's being pushed by a really kind of energetic and kind of like boastful drums and bass, like a real kind of muscular. It's like the drums and the guitar and the bass and the horns sound like they were kind of added in, like, okay, we're gonna take this song and you guys are gonna back it up. Ready? They sound like sort of different to me in a way. I guess the orchestration, it's because it's trying to sound sort of like sad and melancholy, but the rhythm section is so positive behind it. I guess, you know, if you were fighting for something and there was a darkness and there were these, you know, intimidating bosses, it's feeling like a dark force pushing down a sadness, and then the power of peppy bass pushing you ahead. Our final selection for Yoko Shimomura is from The Legend of Mana. This is Southern City Polpota. Sometimes a composer can make or break a game. We'd say she has a lot of qualities in the project she works on. At least brings them up to a good standard. For sure. I would play Kingdom Hearts just to listen to it, I guess. I do remember the first time I played Kingdom Hearts and when you hear that town theme. But anyways, we're talking about this one. Much sparser instrumentation compared to the last classical one with Final Fantasy 15. I mean, Final Fantasy 15, I believe, was in development for like 10 years or something stupid like that. Going through multiple directors, you know, changing from, Final Fantasy Versus 13 to then 15. So she had a lot of time. But this is a little more simple. I love that, the way that piano just kind of marches along. It's really crunchy sounding. I like the delay or the reverb that she's put on it. It kind of sounds like it's played in an old hall or like a saloon or something. There's this really jaunty melody above it, almost like Koji Kondo worthy. Really plucky, really adventurous, catchy. But the piano rhythm kind of gives it kind of grounds it for me. It's almost like a runaway circus. You can just see like a funny little snake. What's going on here? You're dead. Off to the next. I'm a happy killing snake. Well, we finally arrived to our number one spot. And if you were involved in the voting or you've watched the show before, I'm sure you can guess who's going to be number one. That's right. Nobuo Uematsu. There he is. You know, I always saw this picture and thought that he had a little, like, helicopter on top of this hat, you know, like, but I don't think he does. Kind of looks like he's wearing underwear. That is the German flag. But this guy here makes some incredibly serious music. For me on my list, it was a big decision between how I'd rank Uematsu and Kondo. And I voted last, and I didn't check your guys' results before I voted because I didn't want to know that if I picked something, it would influence it. But anyways, Kondo, I kept weighing it like he's really started it all with what he did on Super Mario Brothers and what he did on the NES. I mean, everything he put out from Mario to Zelda, and Mario 2 and Mario 3 and Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. It was just so good over and over again. It kind of seems like he is number one in terms of influence and his place in the video game music universe, forever changed by him. But Uematsu is one that I still go back to and listen to his music constantly if I'm driving or going to sleep or just want to listen to something great, something epic, something dramatic, something really interesting. Especially his work on Final Fantasy VII. But he just continually amazes me with what he wants to do, with what he can do with fun melodic stuff, with energetic battle themes, with extreme drama, storytelling, scoring cutscenes. And that's what we're going to start off with here was, if you want to talk about the influence of Koji Kondo, I would say that when Square, back when good old Squaresoft was a company, and when they put out on the PlayStation 1 Final Fantasy VII and had the most impressive CGI you'd ever seen in a video game, and epic story, and just bringing the JRPG and Final Fantasy genre to North America in a big way. And I think his music, the way that he treated it like it was a cinematic movie, I think was a huge part of that. And I think that he was probably super influential to people beyond. So let's start off with the prelude from Final Fantasy VII, and we'll go into the bombing mission. God damn it. Fucking touchpads. Ruining my dramatic moment. Wow. I mean, the way that he scores that whole opening sequence. I mean, just like the big reveal of, I mean, starting in the stars, the magicalness of Aerith all alone like a flower springing out of the dirt or through the cracks in the dirty city. I mean, and then going from Aerith, pulling all the way out, all the way out, all the way out to see this crazy city, and then BAM! Hit you with the title. And the way he scored it like a movie, which I don't remember there being, you know, much of that at the time. And then the way he segues in this like railway before you see the train. Cool smash cut. And then bring it all the way back down into the train. I mean, I'm talking about the video of it too, but the way his soundtrack perfectly scores this, and it just gave it this like that fast piano. It's like you needed to be underground. It was kind of confrontational. It was really exciting. It was dramatic, but it had that heist feel, that sneaky feel. Wow. All right, so from the epic highs that Final Fantasy VII had in terms of influence in the gaming industry, and Uematsu alongside with it, we're going to go back to his work on Final Fantasy III. This is Memory of the Wind. Now, this is the DS version, so it'll sound a lot different than the NES hardware, of course. A really beautiful track, and it looks like it wasn't arranged by him. If this Final Fantasy wiki is right, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different arrangers. It says it was produced by Uematsu. Let's take a listen to the original version. Oop. Eternal Wind? The intro's so different. Oh my god, it is the same song? That is wild. Okay, I'll start it back from the beginning. Wow, that intro threw me off so much. Amazing that he created so much of just that crazy having that note, or that, not that one note, there's far more notes, but having that one instrument, it's just like watching somebody, you know, when you have like a sparkling wand that's lit on fire and you're drawing in the air. That's what he's doing. The way he uses those arpeggios. And it's like he's sort of writing out the chord as the notes are disappearing. But there's just something so like magical to that sound wave, eh? It's like a little bit of vibrato, I think. It sounds like it. I'm not an expert on NES hardware, but to me it sounds like there is a bit of vibrato, even just from the writing. It gives it the feel of a violin player, you know, just the expression that they put on. What's great for when you get a real player as opposed to just like punching it into a keyboard, is like a really great player. The way they start a note, the way they end a note, is what transports you. That's what brings you into that meditative state. Draws your attention to something transient. And this was apparently the world map theme, which just makes it sound like so like expansive and open, but also, you know, a bit chaotic too, and a bit confusing as you are just exploring this big world. I mean, his work improved so much from what was on Final Fantasy 1 and 2 when he was new to the NES hardware. Kondo totally outclassed him, as well he should have. He worked for Nintendo. Kondo still had incredible melodies and stuff from the first couple Final Fantasies, but he really understood the hardware here and just made it fucking sing. Very ornate. This would be a nice one just to hear with, like, this one is great on its own. It'd be nice with an orchestration. I could hear it with like a string quartet maybe, or like you say, like on a harpsichord. You know, when comparing Koji Kondo and Uematsu, you know, I think of Kondo as his highs would be the Mario theme, would be the original Zelda theme. And I would put this one right up against a Zelda theme in a different way, but to me they both sound like this heroic but slightly melancholic march, where this one would be more on the melancholy side, and Zelda more on the heroic side. From Final Fantasy VI, this is Terra's theme. That's bad. I had to check if this is a restored version. It just sings, and it actually sounds like it is played by a person. But yeah, no, I am with you there, Claudio and Chris. It's like the bass and the drums are very played like a military snare drum, like a march. Bump, 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 ba-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum. And they're so like harsh and rigid, and they never change. It's just like marching. It's more mindless, and the bass has a lot of attack on it, you know. It's like it's pushing you. It's like these two guards are just nudging her in the back, you know, with a nightstick. And then this soaring, wooden, organic sounding, fairy-like melody just shoots out ahead of them and is doing, you know, such incredible, hopeful, magical things that it just leaves behind the oppressive rhythm behind it. And then the really cinematic strings scoring it all. You know, actually, I was talking about how Final Fantasy VII did it so well to make it feel like a movie. I mean, that was a fucking amazing intro. They introduce... Actually, it's pretty similar. It's funny, there's a lot of stuff in the PlayStation that seemed really impressive because it was in 3D, but it was still just iterating on what was done before. Like Ocarina of Time is Link to the Past, but in 3D. Metal Gear Solid is like Metal Gear, but in 3D. I mean, even the way they, you know, previously in this video, I couldn't find it without my big giant head in the way. The way it like pans over the steamy city, but comes out, credits roll. I love the way the world is unfurling toward you like an automatic player piano. All right, from Final Fantasy IX, this is Hunter's Chance, Festival of the Hunt. It's interesting. It really sounds like the battle theme, or like actually Seymour's theme from Final Fantasy X. Man, this sounds so much like Seymour's theme. The way it goes, that irregular time, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's like a 5/4 thing. That low piano, and then the weird kind of spacey alien theme. It sounds so much like Seymour's theme from Final Fantasy X. I wonder if it really sounds to me like if this wasn't a boss theme, that he made it as a boss theme to have, and then was like, all right, we'll just use this for whatever the Festival of the Hunt is. I played Final Fantasy IX. It's such a big game, I don't remember what this is even from. But yeah, I think he really evolved it with Seymour's theme. Fight with Seymour, that's what it's called. Oh, this is the remastered theme. So metal, that splash. It's like a little China splash. So dancey too. God, I love that bass. This is actually, you know what? Now I'm having doubts that it doesn't do that breakdown part. It goes and it stacks on top of each other. Is that on this? This would be a great Sonic battle theme. This is you fighting the craziest of all bosses when you it's like, try to figure out this pattern, and then this weird pattern, and like 3 weird patterns all on top of each other. It's like balancing plates. It's so cool. Reminds me of playing with Dark Souls and trying to remember all the different attack patterns. It's wild. It's just totally wild. Alright. We've heard some crazy prog rock from Uematsu. We've heard epic adventurous themes, cinematically scored stuff. I want to play a few of his ones that really just kind of stop me in my tracks in terms of how powerful and emotional they are. First one is from Final Fantasy IX. It's Freya's theme. Waiting for that bass to come in. Something this simple would be impossible in modern Final Fantasy? Yeah, I think it really could be. I don't really know how to describe this other than it just feels just so it's just like something so powerful has come from above. It's like a floating ball of light where it's not moving super fast, but it is moving in a way that will never stop. And so perfectly. You know the way a cat can move slowly, but with grace. And I think Freya is a character that launches themselves up into the air and then pounces down, where you just can't even touch them, and they're going to hit you. And it's going to be powerful. And when the bass comes in, it's just so sinister. And I believe they use this to score like a very, very terribly sad scene. But it just has so much of like good fighting against evil, but drenched in rain and the darkness. And you know the hero probably is going to do it. For sure they're going to do it, even if they have to die trying. But it's almost feeling like this is a suicide mission. So noble and sad. Now, similar to the power of Freya's theme, this is from Final Fantasy X, and I like to think that, they bring on Hamazu and Nakano, and, Hamazu's doing this, like, crazy, ambient, beautiful stuff, and I like to think that Uematsu threw this one in to go, I can also do that better than you. This is Silence Before the Storm. That arpeggio that he creates with that harpsichord, those horns that actually sound like the mellotron. They sound like the intro strings or horns or whatever from Sgt. Pepper or Strawberry Fields. Sorry, it's just like so magical and warm, like Freya's theme, and that gliding fretless bass giving it more magic and just again, it's like another magical ball just slowly floating, but incredibly otherworldly grace and eventuality to it. Unbelievable. All right, we're going to end off with one final Uematsu theme. I chose this one because he was there in the late 80s with the first Final Fantasy. He was there in the Super Nintendo with Final Fantasy VI. He was there in the PS1 with Final Fantasy VII. He was there in Final Fantasy X. And they brought on other people to take over for Final Fantasy throughout, 11 and 12. I don't know if he did any of the MMO stuff, for 15, for 16. But for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, they brought him back to do one more song. And just like he kind of flexed towards Masashi Yamazu with that Calm Before the Storm, this is his contribution to the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Hollow, featuring the rock vocalist Yosh. All right, let's try that again. This will be the live orchestral version of Hollow. It's like the James Bond phone. I don't like the Young and the Restless soap opera piano. Should be a guitar. Also, I'm a little worried this recording sucks. Let's try this again. You gotta have the guitar. The guitar, that chord on the guitar, there's so much like ambiguity to it. It's just suspended. You don't know where like the root is. You don't know what chord it is.
We're almost
there.
The
lonely harmonica. The harmonica and the guitar are not instruments you're going to hear in an orchestra. And they suit this kind of like lone adventurer so much better. Big, fat, distorted drums.
I miss it. The steel sky.
I would be lost, drifting alone, floating up high, time after time, and there you'd be, shining brightly. Smiling face to guide my way. Bloody and bruised.
Oh, fuck that guy too. Fuck Nojima. Big time. I realize that it might not be Nomura I hate, but Nojima. Nojima seems to be the one behind the stories of all the Nomura games I hate. Whereas maybe Nomura's just the guy who came up with a great battle system. Bye, Rudy. Thanks for your votes. Thanks for everything, buddy. This song has such an incredible build to it. That nice long, like, the intro seems long, the verse kind of seems long, you go to this part, like, there's two runs through that first verse form, now we're doing a pre-chorus. But what it builds to in that chorus is just masterfully put together. Guitar and wank all over it. That's how you fucking tastefully. It's like after he does that incredible build that leads to this huge line here. It's so powerful and you think, wow, and it just like the car goes off the cliff and then you think it's over. And then he comes in with this like Brian May and Queen like fucking harmonized guitar solo that you never really heard him do before. Now with later systems, you can use the guitar. Fucking amazing. Alright, if you're watching on YouTube and you want to join our Discord, if there's not a link there in the description, then ask me for one in the comment and I'll give you one. And you can vote just like these people did. Thanks everybody. Bye.